See Paul already standing to my left-hand side here, right on the 18th green at Royal St George. As you say, it's just hours away. It's an early start tomorrow morning. 6:35 is the first tee time. But it's been 2 long years, Paul, since we've witnessed any golf in the Open. How much are you looking forward to it? Because it's been such a difficult 2 years, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. And, over in America, it hasn't been too difficult. They've been able to carry on and do everything they needed to do. And obviously, it's been a bit slower here. The return of 32,000 people a day is something, the noise and those voices around the golf course are going to resonate. And, on the back of all the football excitement from last week, I think a return to professional sport is very welcome, and particularly the big crowds.
Well, let's talk about the conditions, because I just arrived here about an hour ago myself, and the first thing I said to Paul was, God, it's windy, isn't it? It's really windy. He says, no, it's not. So how tough is it going to be, or not tough, for the players?
Well, I mean, listen, it's always difficult. There's about no more than 15 mile an hour wind forecast this week, which is a club and a half for these players. When you play a links golf course, a lot of players like a little bit of a breeze, just like a sailor will like a little bit of a breeze. Same with golfers when it comes to a links golf course, because you can bank the ball against it. So that's not a drama. 15 mile an hour is not a big wind. That's what's no more forecast this week. The big factor is the fact that with the heavy rains that we've had here the last couple of months in particular, is that the course is very lush.
Yeah.
It's quite soft normally by links standards. So that's going to be a big factor for the players this week, and it generally leads, when a golf course is soft, to pretty good scoring. So I'm expecting potentially even a double figure score winning here this week.
Really interestingly, before the US Open, I did a little Zoom chat with Paul, and I said, who do you fancy winning the US Open? And he said, Jon Rahm. And I said, can you predict the winning score? And he said, 5 under. Now, as we all know, Jon Rahm finished 6 under. So, Paul, you need to do better this week.
No, I mean, it's not always that easy. But, Jon Rahm had great form around there. I know the golf course well, and that's what I thought it would be. So, I mean, this week I really do feel I think we're going to get close to double figures, if not double figures, for the winning score. Because it's soft, it doesn't really give an edge to the guys who are great links specialists, because it is a little bit more of a target golf, and that brings a lot of players in here. We've had a couple of 300 to 1 winners here in recent times. Darren Clark was well outside the favourites when he came, and also with Ben Curtis, I think was 300 to 1 when he came and won here. So we have seen that in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody spring in that we mightn't necessarily know or be familiar with in the name, but you wouldn't discount the favourites. And Jon Rahm is the obvious one that stands out with a lot of form on the back of the big confidence he got from winning the US Open. He's the guy the bookies have as favourite, naturally so, and he's the guy that I think is going to take a lot of beating again.
So you think it's a good chance he could do back-to-back?
I do. I mean, if you look at the guys who are in the modern era who amass major championship wins, and there's no doubt Jon Rahm is going to go on and win a number of these major championship titles, they normally see it to do it in quick succession, bang, bang, bang. And I think we've just seen the ignition now of Jon Rahm's major haul of major wins, let's call it that, starting to ignite now with that US Open, and I can see it going on from here.
Just on Rahm, that was an unbelievable revelation yesterday. He came out in his news conference and said, I've got a club foot, and that is why my swing is so short and so wide. Now, you say you knew that already. A lot of us didn't and couldn't believe it. How difficult must that have been for him over the years to make him into the player that he is?
Yeah, well, I think it was a factor when he was younger. There's no doubt about that, and also he's got some issues with his wrists. He doesn't have full bending of his wrists, and as a result, that's why he's got a short 3/4 position, and also how he uses his legs. So he's basically molded a swing, and so have his coaches, around his limitations physically. So it just shows you don't have to be the perfect specimen in terms of being an athlete to be successful in sport, and you work around it, and certainly John's done that.
Well, you've mentioned Jon Rahm, and just a moment ago we saw Xander Schauffele and Colin Morikawa there, and Paul said you could see any of those 3 winning. Could you see a British winner?
Oh yeah, very much so. The English guys in particular stand out. Obviously, a lot of them are coming in here with form. Fitzpatrick played so well last week, so did Poulter play so well. Hatton is a guy that we are expecting to win major titles. He's got the heart, he's got everything that goes with it. Having said that, his performances in major championships have not been good compared to the rest of his wins that he's had. Paul Casey, another guy, comes to mind. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see one of those English guys raise a strong gallop here this week. And Morikawa and Schauffele, I think the fact that the conditions are quite benign in terms of wind and also quite soft because of the weather conditions that we have had in the last couple of months, I think that brings a lot of those guys into play. If it was very firm and bouncy with their limited links experience, I wouldn't be fancying them as much. But with these conditions, I think you certainly can't discount them.
And just finally, you mentioned the crowds earlier, expecting up to 32,000 every day here at Royal St George's. We saw a lot of them earlier this morning. We did a live hit when 4 of the top players in the world all teed off today in a practice round together. We saw DJ Rahm, we saw DeChambeau and Mickelson all teeing off together.
Yeah.
How does that work in a practice round? Do they all choose to play with each other?
Yeah, that's what it does. I mean, there's a big connection there. Remember Arizona State where Phil Mickelson went to college, and Jon Rahm. There's a big connection with them. They're friends. They have been friends from their similar university backgrounds. So that's natural connection. But also what the Americans do as well too in these practice rounds is that they've got their eye on the Ryder Cup in September. And what they're doing is playing practice rounds with potential pairings and stuff like that. So Phil has got a big voice in that Ryder Cup team room. So as much as they're preparing here, they're using these opportunities when they all come together to play practice rounds together and trial out different pairings and stuff like that, and create a bit of a bond between the players and getting it ready for September.
No surprise then that Brooks Koepka wasn't in there alongside Bryson DeChambeau. But we won't go there today though. I know we're all fed up talking about that. But Paul, thanks very much for joining us. The excitement is building. You say it's just hours away. 6:35, the first tee off tomorrow. Richard Bland gets the 149th Open Championship underway here tomorrow morning, very early at Royal St George's.